Hey everyone, it's Crystal. So, Jackson is asleep. So, if he wakes up, I'll just nurse him and everything. But yesterday was Father's Day, and it was my first Father's Day without my dad. Um, he passed away December 9th, 2014, from pancreatic cancer, and I have wanted to record a video about his loss, and I kept putting it off, but I just watched Candy Johnson's video about losing her dad, and that's why I look like this. um, it definitely brought back all the memories, but it was such a good video, and it was so helpful to me that I thought it was about time for me to record my video too. So here it is. Um, First of all, I was such a daddy's girl. He was always supportive, and he was supportive, but he was always that stern, like, father figure. I mean, it was, do your homework, practice piano, and be asleep by your bedtime. And, he was that strict parent, but at the same time, he was like the funniest guy I have ever met. And he's the kind of person where you want to watch funny videos with him just to watch him laugh. Like Mystery Science Theater 3000. Not sure if anyone knows what that is, but it is a really dumb show that was just stupid funny, and I loved watching it with him. I'm not a fan of the Three Stooges, but watching him watch the Three Stooges, hysterical. So, he had a very dry sense of humor, very, disgusting sense of humor, and I have that, and I'm hoping my kids have that because it's awesome. But anyway, so yeah, we were super close. He was always supportive. I would always text him on just about a daily basis, and we would talk a few times a week. He lived in Florida, and I live in Tennessee. So we moved to Tennessee about 2.5 years ago. No, it wasn't quite that long. It was about 2 years ago. And, so I didn't get to see him as much as I wanted. And when we made this move, it was very difficult to have to move farther away from him because we were already about 4 hours apart. And I was crying, and I was like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And he moved from New York to Florida, and he said that it was the hardest thing he ever had to do. He didn't want to leave his mom, but it ended up being the best thing for him, and he wanted to make sure that I knew he was supporting me. He supported our decision to move to Tennessee, as long as it was the right move for us, and I still 100% believe it was the right move for us, as hard as it was to not see him as often. It was something we had to do. So anyway, super supportive dad, super close, always shared everything. He knew exactly how I felt about him. I knew exactly how he felt about me. It was awesome. Best relationship I could have asked for. He was also, he was a police officer, and so that kind of plays into the story. But anyway, it was shortly after Thanksgiving. We were opening up our store, our kids' consignment store, on Small Business Saturday. So we opened up. It was an epic fail. We had 3 customers, I think, but whatever. I might have to post them. So I said, okay, you know what? Whatever. We'll do it again tomorrow. I remember texting my dad. I was like, we made $10 today. Pizza cost us $10.50. So I guess we did okay. Paid for lunch almost. But he was like, well, I'll just keep going, whatever. So anyway, I got a call from him on Sunday, and he said, is Ben there? I was like, yeah, he's off. He's over here playing with Colt, and I'm at the register. And he said, okay, are you sitting down? I was like, yeah. And I obviously knew something was wrong. And I said, what's wrong? He's like, well, is Ben there? said, yeah, Ben's here. He's like, okay, well, I've not been feeling well lately. And he had been sounding rough, and they were doing some tests on him and blood work and all that. So I said, yeah, what did you find out what's going on? He was like, well, the doctor told me I had cancer. And my heart stopped. And I told him, I was like, oh, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. Don't stress. Did he say what kind? He said, yeah, it's pancreatic cancer. And my mom had just lost someone to pancreatic cancer, and it was so fast. So knowing that, I panicked. I said, well, did he tell you what stage it was? And he said, yeah, it's stage 4. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. If you don't know anything about pancreatic cancer, unfortunately, it is a very fast-moving cancer. It tends to be. And once it's stage 4, unfortunately, that's almost a death sentence. And at that point in the conversation, I kept saying, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And he was feeling really weak, so he handed the phone to his friend that was there with him. And her dad had passed away from pancreatic cancer. And she said it's so hard watching him. He's deteriorating. He's so thin. And I said, how bad is he? And she said that, she's like, you need to be here. So I didn't have money for a flight at that point. All of my money just went to the store for us to open up. And she said, we'll figure it out, but you need to be here. So I got a call from the police department chaplain, and he was so nice, but he wouldn't sugarcoat anything for me, which is what I needed. I needed someone to say, your dad is dying. And after I got off the phone with my dad, I went into the shop, and I told my husband. He's like, what happened? I said, my dad's dying, and I can't do this right now. I just can't do this. And he just gave me a hug, and we closed the store, and he's like, it's going to be okay. But anyway, after I talked to the chaplain, he was going to find a flight for me and Colton. And he was like, I hate to say this, but you need to get here soon. And I was like, well, I found something, but it doesn't come out until, next Tuesday. And he was like, I don't know how he's going to be. We're thinking maybe he has a month or more, but you never know. So they found a flight where I would get into South Florida on Thursday. So Colt and I, the plan was for us to go down Thursday, and it was a one-way ticket, and we would just stay indefinitely until he passed. And I was only 4 months pregnant at the time, so I was still able to travel, and I wanted to be able to tell my dad if we were having a boy or a girl. So we had a sonogram. It said it was a girl. Turned out to be a boy, but I told my dad I was able to surprise him and say, we're having a girl, and her name's going to be Charlotte Eleanor. Anyway, I was named, he named me power of attorney, and I had some legal things to take care of in the meantime, and the police department, their attorneys were helping me, the chief of police was helping. It was just like this huge support group that was all making sure everything, his insurance was right, like his life insurance, his living will was done. He had to sign all of this paperwork in no time. It was so rushed, but we made sure everything got done, and it was done, the way it needed to be. And thank God they were there, and they helped him with that. And anyway, Colton and I, we flew. This was our first time flying together, and he did wonderful. He was just a little over 2 at the time. And we flew in, and we got there late Thursday night. Come to find out, Thursday, my dad decided to have a chemo port put in, even though his doctor said that he was too weak for surgery and everything. But he was stubborn, and he was damned and determined to fight the cancer and wanted to make sure he got his chemo port. I advised against it. I didn't want him to do it because I was terrified that he wouldn't come out of surgery. But he did it anyway. So, anyway, we got in Thursday night. My dad was still in the hospital recovering, so I got to see him Friday morning at the hospital. The surgery was delayed quite a bit because of his blood pressure. Now, my dad has a history of high blood pressure, so I assumed they couldn't get his blood pressure down. So, when I finally saw him, first of all, my aunt and everyone told me how horrible he looked, that he was frail, he was yellow and gray, and I had put this image in my head of what he probably looked like, and it was so much worse in my head than what he was. When I walked into the recovery room, I was relieved, and I was so glad that it was worse in my head, and I didn't have this shocked look on my face. But I saw him, and he was very, very thin, very frail. He was just like a skeleton, and he was yellow, and his fingertips were gray. And I visited with him for a little bit, and he said, that the surgery, they couldn't have it when it was scheduled because of his blood pressure. I said, oh, it was too high? He said, no, it was too low, which is just crazy. I mean, he was on blood pressure medicine for the longest time, always has had high blood pressure. So when he said that his blood pressure was too low, I was obviously, that can't be good. So anyway, in the meantime, I had called his childhood friend, and I unfortunately had to be the one to break the news to him that my dad was dying, and he was able to find any flight soon to come see him. And he was able to come in, and he came in Friday night, and my dad was just so excited. He hadn't seen him in years, and he wasn't that excited to see me because he was expecting me. So it was really nice. It was really nice to see my dad happy. They were telling jokes and everything. It was awesome. He came home. I didn't say this. He came home from the hospital Friday afternoon. My brother helped him out of the car and helped him up and everything. My brother is his stepson, so we have a different dad. Same mom. Not that that matters. So my dad's friend was here Friday night and Saturday, and he was doing pretty good. He wasn't able to go to the bathroom by himself or take a shower by himself. He was just really, really weak, and the pancreatic cancer had metastasized to his bones, lungs, liver, and lymph nodes, I believe. So when it goes to your bones, that's extremely painful. So that's why he was having a hard time walking and everything. And he wasn't able to eat. He was just skin and bones. So he did not want me to help him in the bathroom at all. And luckily my aunt was there and was able to help him with that. I know he was really embarrassed for some reason. Well, I understand why he's embarrassed, but he didn't want his daughter to do that for him, which I understand. I wouldn't want my kids to do that either. And unfortunately, his friend had to go home on Sunday. So he went home, he went back to New York, and my dad just kind of relaxed after that. He laid on the couch and he just slept a lot. He was taking medication for pain, but by Sunday afternoon, his throat seemed like it was starting to close up, and we crushed his pills, we, broke them, and he was not able to take his pain medicine. So he was starting to really hurt. When he would go to sleep, he would call out for his mom, and his mom passed away in 2002, I believe, or 2003. So I thought that was a little strange that maybe he was seeing her. But anyway, so Sunday afternoon, the pain started to get really rough, and he couldn't get comfortable. He had a blanket that was about this thin, like you can see through it. And it hurt him. It hurt to be on him. So he could not get comfortable at all. And my aunt asked him, do you want to go to the hospital? And he would just get angry and say, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. And he sniffed at me a few times, but whatever, he's in pain. I'm not going to take it personally. And I remember I had to call his doctor and say, he is suffering, he's hurting, and he can't swallow his pills. And he was like, you're going to have to get him to the hospital, and he's too weak and too heavy for you to carry by yourself. You're going to have to get an ambulance there. And the reason I believe that my dad did not want to go to the hospital is because he knew he would die there. And I don't think he was worried about dying in general. I just don't think he wanted to be at a hospital, which I totally get. But I had this conversation with him, and I said, I love you, and I want to take care of you, and I want to make sure that you're comfortable. But you have to understand, there's only so much I can do for you here to make you comfortable. And what we can do is call an ambulance, and they will take you to whatever hospital you want to go to, and they'll give you an IV so you don't have to take pills, and they will make sure that you're very comfortable. And they'll alleviate all the pain that you're having and everything. And he stood still for a minute, or he sat in his bed, and he said, okay, let's do that. I said, okay. And I knew what I was doing. I knew I was calling an ambulance to take my dad away, and he was going to die in the hospital. And that was a really hard thing to make that decision. But I wanted to make sure it was his decision, that he was the one that wanted to do it. I wasn't going to force him to do something he didn't feel comfortable doing. But I called 911, and he was having a hard time breathing too. So they sent an ambulance over, and the paramedics were so nice. They were so compassionate and gentle and sweet and hot. One was, oh my God, he was good looking, and it just helped to look at something that nice. I know my dad's laughing. That's the only reason why I can get away with this. But anyway, they put him on a stretcher, and it was so hard to look at that, because I knew that was the last time I was going to see my dad in his house. So it was a little strange. But they asked him where he wanted to go, and he wanted to go to the hospital that was closest to the police station, so that way his friends could come, his coworkers can come and visit and everything. And they took him there. It wasn't the best hospital, but whatever. He was in triage for way too long, half the night, but they were able to get him some pain relief. Anyway, he was early Monday morning, he was finally transferred to the ICU, and they talked to me about what they were wanting to do, and his main thing was pain relief. So they started him on morphine, and we called in the priest, and the chaplain came and took care of all of his spiritual needs. And he was so chill and at ease, and he knew. When we were in triage, he was like, so, I guess this is it. And I said, no, this isn't it. This is the start of something else. You get to go be with your mom and your dad and his best friend Leo, and it was nice. He was so ready, and I guess that's the right word to use, that he was ready to die, and it's just crazy. So Monday he was on morphine, and he slowly started to not be able to talk, like move. He said it hurt to move his jaw. So as power of attorney, I was able to do all the paperwork for him so he didn't have to worry about it. I assured him, the police department called, said that hospice was 100% covered, no co-pays. So that took a huge stress, because that's another thing that he was worried about. He didn't want me to be responsible for the hospice costs. And luckily the police station, like their insurance, covered it all. So anyway, Monday evening, when he wasn't able to really talk, but he was still conscious, I had a conversation with him, and it was like, I'm so glad God gave me the opportunity to have this conversation with him. I told him, how great of a dad he was, how much I appreciated him. I told him, I know he was worried about money, especially for me, and I said, you've worked really hard, and, your insurance is going to go to me, and I want you to know that, you're going to give my kids a home, and a really good start, and that he'll be with us. And I said, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand. And he squeezed my hand, and he raised his eyebrows in a way that said, I just want to tell you I love you. And he couldn't say anything, and I said, you don't have to tell me anything right now. You don't have to try to talk, because I know exactly what you want to say, because I would say the same things to my babies. And that's, I love you, I'm proud of you, you're doing the right thing, I support your choices. Don't be afraid, I'll be with you. And I know that's what he wanted to say. And shortly after that, he just kind of lost consciousness. He was still, breathing and everything on his own, but it was very fast after that conversation, and I felt like it gave him permission to let go. So we stayed up with him. If we ever had to leave and go get food or shower or anything, there was always an officer there with him. He was never, ever, ever alone. And I'm so grateful for that. And Tuesday came around, and the doctors, he said, it's going to be today. I can tell by his breathing, by his heart, that it's going to be today. I just don't know when. So I had to do some last-minute legal issues that I had to go take care of, but my aunt stayed with him. I came back, he was still breathing and everything, and I actually brought Colton with me to the hospital at that point, and Colton took a nap on the bed next to him, and my aunt and I were eating Chinese food, and I looked over, and I saw him take his last breath, and it was just so peaceful. And if we were just, my aunt and I were having a conversation just like he was in the room. I mean, he was in the room, but just like he could participate with us, and just saying, how brave he was and everything. And yeah, so he passed away Tuesday, December 9th. I think it was around 3 o'clock or so. And it was very peaceful, and Colton woke up shortly after. I went to go get the nurses, to tell them so they can make, pronounce him dead and everything. And Colton played with the controls to his hospital bed and made his bed go up. I was like, oh, okay, well, he's trying to help him get a fast track to heaven or something. So, but I didn't mention that, the cancer, it seemed like it had spread to his brain because he was very sensitive to light. But just laying or sitting in the bed next to him, you could see his eyes start to turn black, his teeth turned black, his legs, the circulation just was horrible. They were like really, really swollen and purple, and but right as he died, all of his color came back, and he looked wonderful. He looked so peaceful, and I was so relieved, and I remember saying, I'm so proud of you for letting go. And I was so proud that he went so peacefully, and he was so accepting of his fate. It was good. It was, I brought 2 babies into this world, and it's an amazing thing. It's so beautiful, but being there when someone leaves this world is truly a privilege that not everyone has the opportunity to do. So, the police department took care of his arrangements. He wanted to be cremated. They made sure that that was in order. They planned and paid for his memorial service. That was just beautiful. And I'm just so grateful for their support. Police officers get a really bad rap sometimes, but man, they were my family when I needed them. And it was funny, a lot of them said they felt like they knew me because he talked about me all the time and was so proud and said how, expressed how much he loved me and his grandson, and he was so excited to have a granddaughter that turned out to be a boy. But anyway, I had moments, and I still have moments where it feels like it was all a dream, that it really didn't happen, and I don't know, it's just, I have to convince myself that it was real, and I think it's because it happened so fast. And for the most part, I'm okay. I still have his ashes. I'm not ready to spread them yet. It's so final to do that. I was planning on doing it after Jack was born, but I'm just not ready. So, I don't know when I'll be ready, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But, anyway, going through his things, it's hard. It's really hard. I have it all. We drove everything from Florida to Tennessee, and it's in closets, it's in storage, it's everywhere, and I'm just so not ready to go through all of that yet. I sold his condo, and it's just all, like, I feel like I'm just now able to grieve, because probate, like the legal part of it, is just, it doesn't allow you the opportunity to grieve. Like, you have so much legal crap to take care of, but now that that's almost over with, it's getting easier. For Father's Day, I wrote on his Facebook wall, sorry, my legs are falling asleep, it's hard to miss him when I see him and my kids so much. Like, his personality is just beaming through both of my kids. Jackson has his eyebrows, and every once in a while he'll raise them, like my dad did in the hospital, and I feel like it's my dad saying I love you. It looks just like him when he does it. So But as far as grieving, I I went through periods of anger and resentment, I guess. I would see someone that looked like my dad or would be a little bit older than him and think that he got gypped. Um, he didn't have the opportunity to get old and retire and everything. So, um, but I've moved past that, and now I don't want to cry. I don't want to cry when I think about him. I want it to be happy, but it's still raw, and I still have moments where I'll just completely break down. Um, I told him in the hospital to leave me pennies when he's around, and I see pennies everywhere. They're constantly, and it's moments when I need them, Um, so I don't have any advice. Everyone grieves in their own way, and that's okay. It's okay. There's no time period. I was thinking, oh well, in a few months I'll be okay, but it's not a time thing. I think it's more of an experience thing. When you go through things enough without that person that you love, you almost numb yourself enough to get through it. And I guess that is a time thing. It his birthday, the first birthday without him, not being able to text him or call him and say happy birthday. It's weird. It's so strange, but it is getting easier. The more things I go through, the more things I experience. The birth of my son, not being able to say, "Hey, my water broke" or anything like that. Um, it's just, it's definitely getting used to my new normal for sure. Um, and it sucks. It's not enjoyable, but I will tell you that it makes me savor the moments between my kids and my husband so much more. Looking at how Colton looks at my husband, it's how I looked at my dad. And I'm so glad I have someone like him in my life, and in my kids' lives. So, anyway, Jack's waking up. That's good timing. I was so all over the place with this, but it felt so good to just talk and let it out, and hopefully, it'll help someone, or, motivate them to talk about it, to talk about their loss, because it really is very, very cathartic. So thank you. I don't expect you to watch this 35-minute video by any means all the way through. If you did, thank you so much for your support and for listening to me, and I feel like it's a way to honor my dad a little bit. But yeah, thank you guys so much.